See, my parents were terrified for me to grow up in what people were calling America's worst city. They saw danger around every corner and a threat in every single neighbor. But those four walls of my house, they felt more like a prison than a safe zone. I knew I had to get away from the fear that hung in the air like smoke. So I chose an even harder hell, and it saved my life. See, I grew up in Camden, New Jersey, during the 1980s. Now, it's important to say, Camden has seen some incredible positive changes in recent years, with crime dropping and the city finding a whole new life, which is amazing to see right now. But back then, when I grew up, it was a totally different story. For most of America, Camden was just a headline, and a cautionary tale at that. See, Time magazine had called it one of the most dangerous cities in the nation. The news painted this picture of urban decay, violence, and hopelessness. And honestly, they weren't wrong. The big three employers, Campbell Soup, RCA, Victor, and New York Shipping Corporation, had all pulled out of the city, taking thousands of jobs and city's economic heart with it. What was then left was like a vacuum, filled with poverty and the kind of desperation that just grinds the city to a halt. But for me, it wasn't just about the headlines, but it was real life. It was the sounds and the smells of my neighborhood. It was the constant low hum of sirens that never went away. It was seeing abandoned row homes and the windows looking vacant, and the smell of decay mixed with the bus exhaust. By the 80s, the population had dropped like a rock, as anyone who could afford to leave fled. The city was left with a tax base that couldn't support even itself, which led it to cuts in everything that make a city a home. And me, I was a C&D student, not because I was dumb, but because I was just suffocating from the total lack of expectation. You could feel the weight of it in the school. Teachers were overwhelmed, resources were thin, and the future wasn't something we ever talked about with any real hope. The world outside was loud and chaotic, a place where, as one report of the Time magazine said, kids had to learn the rules of casual violence just to get by. Needles and empty Coke bottles in the streets were just a part of the scenery. For a lot of us kids, dealing drugs wasn't some evil plan, but it was just most obvious career path that when all legal jobs were gone. See, my world was even smaller though, because my own home, which should have been a refuge, felt like the center of confinement. See, my parents loved me. There's no doubt about that. But their love came as a deep, paralyzing fear. They'd seen that what the city could do to others, the dreams it could swallow up whole. So their response was to build a fortress all around us. Not with bricks though, but with rules. I couldn't play sports, couldn't have friends over. I could barely even leave the front steps. Every person walking by was a potential threat. Every opportunity was a risk. So I spent my childhood just watching. I watched the world from the front steps, a silent observer of life I wasn't allowed to live. I saw other kids playing stickball, their laughter echoing down the streets. I saw teenagers leaning on cars, their bravado a thin mask for some uncertain they all felt. And I heard my parents whispering through the walls, their talk always coming back to the danger, the decay, and their desperate need to help keep us safe. So what they couldn't see was that their safety was a cage. I felt my own voice getting quieter and buried underneath the fear of the city's apathy. I didn't see a future, so I just stopped looking for one. See, my report cards reflected that. Those C's and D's, they weren't just grades, but they were a quiet protest, the shrug of the kid who had been told in 1,000 different ways that this world was small and his future was already decided. There wasn't a single lightning strike moment, but then there was a single lightning strike moment. It was more of a slow burn, an ember of defiance that had been smoldering for years. It was the 1,000th times I heard no. It's too dangerous. The 100th time I watched other kids ride a bike down the block. A freedom that felt as far away as the moon to me. That ember finally caught fire when I was a teenager. A Marine Corps recruiter came to my high school. He stood in our gym, sharp and disciplined, his uniform a stark contrast to the worn-out school around him. He didn't talk about war and combat like you see in the movies, but he talked about challenges, discipline. He talked about earning something that nobody could ever take away from you, the title to be called United States Marine. Yes, he wasn't selling a dream, but he was selling a crucible, a way out that wasn't an escape, but a confrontation. He was offering a different kind of hell, a structured one though. And for a kid from a place where chaos was the norm, that structure was everything. See, for the first time I saw a path. It was terrifying, a path most people would run away from, but it was mine. It was a choice. In a life full of limits set by everyone else, the power of that one choice felt huge. So when I told my parents, their reaction was exactly what I expected. But man, it still hurt. To them, the military wasn't about honor, but it was about a death sentence. It was about more of the same of being in fear. They saw it as a tool for the government to send poor kids from the cities like ours to fight in wars that they didn't understand. It wasn't the ultimate danger. It was the ultimate danger. They weren't really conversations. They were battles. They chew you up and they spit you out. My father would say, his voice thick with anger and fear. My mother would just cry, begging me not to throw my life away, not to join into the military. They refused to sign the early enlistment papers. It was their final no, that their last attempt to keep me safe in this fortress. But this time, their fear didn't trap me, but it fueled me. They're no cemented my yes. It made me realize that their fear was a prison I had to break free from. I was suffocating. I wasn't just joining the Marines to get out of Camden anymore. I was joining to escape the person that I had become in that house, a quiet, a scared, terrified kid was a C student with no voice. So I waited and I finished high school, my grades still showing how checked out I was. The day I turned 18, I walked back into that recruiter's office by myself and signed the papers. It was the first time that my decision I had ever made was completely my own. I was completely terrified, yes, but under all the terror was a new feeling I didn't realize. Strength. It was the strength of defiance, the strength of choosing the harder path just to prove that I could walk it. Yes, in the bus ride to Parris Island, South Carolina was dead silent, a heavy, anxious silence shared by a bus full of us guys, all trying to look tough, all hiding the same fear that we were having. We were leaving everything that the world we'd been used to and moving toward a life we knew nothing about. But then the bus doors hissed open and the silence was shattered by a wall of sound. Get off my bus! Get off my bus! Move, move! The screaming was just immediate and it was everywhere. Drill instructors descending from every single place like hawks, their faces twisted in rage. They stumbled out into the humid air and onto a set They set us on some yellow footprints painted on the asphalt. You are now on the yellow footprints. This is where your pathetic civilian life ends and your new life begins. Your soul may belong to God, but your butts belong to the Marine Corps. This was the harder hell, yes it was, I was talking about. See, back in Camden, the danger was random and unpredictable. A stray bullet doesn't have a reason. Violence could pop off and wasn't at any moment notice. It was a dishonest kind of hell. But Parris Island, this was different. The screaming had a purpose. The aggression was part of a process. For the first time, I was in a place where the rules, no matter how harsh they were crystal clear. In the middle of all that chaos, I found a strange kind of order. This hell was honest. I was so unprepared. I was a shy kid who had spent his whole entire life trying to be invisible. And now I was in a world where being invisible was completely impossible. Every move was scrutinized. Every flaw was put on blast. I didn't trust authority, so my whole life had been about resisting my parents' fear. So when a drill instructor got in my face, my first instinct was to push back. I clenched my fist. I clenched my jaw, stared back at half a second too long, and I came dangerously close to fighting back in the way I was used to those first couple weeks. See, the physical part was a whole different kind of brutal. I wasn't a runner. I'd never been pushed physically ever. See, I couldn't join the sports in high school, so the endurance runs felt like my own body was attacking me. My lungs burned, my legs were lead, and every step was a fight against the voice screaming to just quit. I was always near the back of the pack, gasping for air. And then there were my glasses. I wore thick bottle cap glasses, heavy on my face. And if that was always the problem, they'd get splattered with mud, slide down from my sweat. Once in the nose during PT, and on the rifle range, they were a nightmare. The Carolina humidity would fog them up instantly, turning my target into a blurry smudge. I failed my first rifle qualification. The frustration was crushing. It felt like another sign that I wasn't cut out for this. The kid from the worst city couldn't even see straight. Yeah, boot camp is designed to break you. That's period. But that's the whole point. It's in the breaking that you find out what you're truly made of. For me, the change came in a series of small surrenders and even smaller victories. That defiant streak I had, that was the first thing to let go. After one too many times clenching my jaw, I found myself in a sand pit doing push-ups until my arms just quit, screaming my platoon number until my voice was actually gone. And it was there, face down in the sand, that I finally got it. The drill instructor wasn't my enemy. He was just the obstacle. Pushing back was easy. That's what I had been used to doing. But trusting the process, that was the real challenge. That was the real strength. See, I learned to unclench my jaw and say, aye, aye, sir. It felt like giving up, but it was actually the first step towards taking control. The running never got easy, but my relationship with the pain started to change. I started to see the burn in my legs not as failure, but as effort. During one horrible run, I was falling behind when a drill instructor ran up beside me, said he didn't just scream, but he just ran with me. His presence, a silent challenge, and it's in that moment that it made a different choice. I focused on the back. I focused on the back of the recruit in front of me. Then the next one. I didn't win, but I finished. I didn't quit. It was a tiny victory that was very huge in my mind. See, on the rifle range, a patient instructor, this sergeant taught me a little trick. He showed me how to put a thin coat of soap on my glasses to stop the fog. He taught me a breathing technique to steady my hands. It wasn't my eyes, it was my technique. When I finally qualified hitting that target, it felt like a shattering the center of my own self-doubt. The biggest change, though, was happening on the inside. In the rare quiet moments, lying in my bunk after lights out, I saw other recruits break. Some had complete mental breakdowns. A few tragically even tried to end their own lives. But seeing their despair was terrifying and made me face my own breaking points. And in those moments of quiet desperation, I started praying. It wasn't anything fancy, just a simple, desperate plea for strength. I'd silently recite a verse from Isaiah 41:10. I remembered, so do not fear, for I am with you. Do not be dismayed, for I am the Lord. I will strengthen you and I will help you. I started to see God not as some distant idea, but as a real source of strength I could tap into at any moment and any time. This wasn't just about my own grit, but I started to believe my destiny was tied to something bigger. The physical strength came from the push-ups, but the real strength, the divine one, the divine strength that kept me going when I had nothing else left, came from my growing faith. Out of the starting platoon of 60 or 70 recruits, only about 20 of us graduated on time. The rest were sent back, injured, or dropped out. I was one of the 20. Yes, the C student who couldn't run and couldn't see was going to be a United States Marine Corps. That whole journey taught me the single most important lesson of my life. It's the foundation for everything I've done since, including my clothing line. It's this: fear is a constant. It's always going to be there. But whispering in your ear, that you're not strong enough, that you're not smart enough, and that you should just stay where you're at. But you always have a choice. You can listen to that whisper, or you can decide to roar back. See, my brand, when fear whispers, roar back, is more than just a slogan on a t-shirt. See, it's a battle cry. It's for anyone who has ever felt small or trapped or underestimated. It's for the person who knows there's a fire inside of you that's waiting to be unleashed. If this story resonates with you, I want you to do two things. First, hit the subscribe button and join this community of people who are choosing to face their own fears with every single day. Second, and more importantly, leave a comment and tell me about a time when fear whispered to you and you had to roar back. Your story matters. Your strength inspires others. Let's fill this space with roars and not whispers. Graduation day was surreal. Standing on the parade deck in my dress blues, I barely recognized the guy in the reflection of my polished shoes. The slouch was gone, replaced by a pride, rigid posture. That doubts in my eye was gone, replaced by a calm confidence. I'd survived the fire. I was the new person. I chose a harder hell, and it absolutely saved my life. It gave me the discipline I never had, and the confidence I always had lacked, and a brotherhood I desperately needed. But the biggest discovery was the strength I found inside of myself, a strength I truly believe comes from God. It's the strength that William Murphy sings about in a song called Strength Like No Other. It's a power that doesn't mean that you're never afraid, but it means that you're never alone, and you have access to something greater than your circumstances. That power proved my past didn't define me, but my future was in the hands of God. See, rising from the ashes of Camden wasn't about forgetting where I came from, but it was about realizing that place that gave me that unique kind of resilience. True strength isn't about fearlessness, but it's about facing your fear and acknowledging it and moving forward anyhow. It's about hearing that whisper telling you to quit, to retreat, and to stay in that cage. and choosing with everything in you to roar back. Yes, because the strength that only God can provide is on the inside of you, waiting to come out. So do not fear, for He is with you. I'm living proof of that promise. And if you can do it, if I can do it, then you can do it too. So I'll see you next week, Monday at 6, and God bless and strength on your journey.